All right, I am recording with Son Tran, live from my kitchen. We're going to talk about coronavirus. We're going to talk about the science behind it, as we both read. We're going to cover some terms, make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. As I have some thoughts that I want to go over with somebody else who understands the terms and has read stuff. So, I guess to start, we have an outbreak of coronavirus. It's or COVID-19, which is a strain of a coronavirus. Which coronaviruses, uh, other coronaviruses are known to cause about 10 to 30% of the common cold. So this is a type of virus that's around, typically causes respiratory colds. You've had one before. Typically, when you get one, it puts you down for a few days, and then you come back and you actually gained a slight immunity to it, but only for a little small amount of time. This current coronavirus causes respiratory issues like most. However, it seems to infect people for much longer periods of time than the typical coronavirus. So it incubates for up to 2 weeks. Some people don't show any symptoms and yet are carriers, and it is highly contagious. Um, the contagious nature of it has obviously caused this worldwide pandemic that we're all, the reason that we're video chatting as opposed to being in person talking about it. Um, so as all of the countries all over the world have started dealing with this extremely contagious thing, it's not super deadly, um, but the instances of hospitalization uh, are much higher than other infections, which mean that when a population, when the coronavirus, when COVID-19 hits a population center, it gets their hospital capacity gets overrun quickly, and so all of the nations are trying to do what's being explained as flattening the curve, which is to say that we can either have a uh, high normalized curve where everybody gets it very quickly and more people die because we have to turn people away from the hospitals because we don't have ventilators for them. Or we elongate the curve, which means still roughly the same amount of people get infected. It's just that our hospital capacities allow more people to get treatment that they need. Um, this is all what you've read as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good recap of everything. I think that's the important part about Corona is not so much the overall death rate, which I think people still under estimate, not underestimate, but don't give as much value to. So you hear a number like 3%, you think, well, that's not a very high death rate, right? But somebody put something online as a meme or something. If I give you 100 M&Ms and said 3% were poisonous, you wouldn't eat any of the M&Ms, right? But for some reason, we seem to think a 3% death rate is nothing to worry about. But you look at the flu, and even though it kills, I think the last year in the U.S. it killed 80,000 people, the flu's only got like a 0.1% death rate, I believe.
Yeah,
So
I've
3%
seen
was pretty
because
wild.
people compare them, and I've
Yeah,
seen it's like less than point 0.1 with the flu.
yeah. So I mean, you're talking about what, over 3,000% more deadly than the flu. I think is how that works out. The numbers. I'm not a math person. It's either 3,000 or 300%. I think it's 3,000% more deadly, right? So,
Well, I would say also, and this is from a couple weeks ago, some early estimates with the contagious rate that this virus has. They say, oh, 40 to 70% of the population of America should expect to get it. And so
yeah,
that means if you say on the low end, so we'll say there are 375 million people in the US.
right.
Uh, let's say 40% get it. That's times zero point 0.4. And then it's a mortality rate of 3%. That's 4.5 million people dead.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You forget how numbers scale up once you multiply by 300 million people or 350
yeah,
million people.
yeah. And
You know.
so, that's obviously like, oh, that's why this is very important.
Yeah,
That we try to keep it under control.
yeah,
Um, but then part of the reason that I started talking about other coronaviruses is because there are also people who are like, oh, we should just get herd immunity. right? Because that's when this will go away, is when
Yeah.
we gain herd immunity. And there are articles out there because people want to know, oh, do you get immunity to this virus? And currently we don't know, except for that there are now reports out of China of people getting infected a second time,
Yeah.
which suggests that there's not very good immunity, or it doesn't last very long.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll find someone will have an immune system response that then we can turn into some sort of treatment or something like that.
Yeah.
But
I think an important point to make though is also like the thing is with this disease is that I think people have to be hospitalized more than for people getting the flu. And that's going to overwhelm the medical system in the country. I mean, you hear stories right now in Italy, even the US here, nurses, doctors working 16-hour shifts just trying to keep people coming in. So yeah, you may not die from this thing, but you still probably have to go to the hospital a lot of times, even if you're young and healthy. So I think that's the thing they're trying to avoid is just a crash in the medical system. If you got one person coming in for corona, you can deal with that. If you got 50 coming in a day trying to deal with corona. So that's why flattening the curve, I think, is so important because you can't take 50 million people all at one time into the hospitals for, a course of 2 weeks, trying to get them better. You could probably deal with 5 million people in the course of a month or 2 months to get them better, right? And then I'm just looking at this R naught here because I read something about the R naught or the infectiousness of this coronavirus. It's somewhere between 2 and 2.5. And for the regular flu, it's about half of that, about 1.3. So this thing's almost twice as infectious as the normal flu. So that's a big problem with this thing as well, is that the social distancing and the quarantining of people is basically twice as important. Because I don't know about you, but you've seen how easily it is for you to get the flu. Even with the infectious rate being half what corona is. I
yeah,
mean, every season you see people calling into work, I got the flu from somebody, and even if they get the shots, they can still get the flu. So this is why this is important. So
well, I'm a bar owner, and typically I see one of my staff will get the flu, and then all of them will get the flu.
yeah,
And so yeah, if this is more infectious than the flu,
yeah,
and it's possible that it's been around and incubating and people are carrying it, and we were still all operating as business as usual a week ago.
yeah,
It's possible that it's very quickly spread through the population, and again, because as high as 40% of young people, especially, don't show any symptoms,
yeah,
we could all be spreading it around very, very easily. So part of the thing is I've seen reports that hospitals are already sort of getting overwhelmed,
yeah,
especially in population dense centers and stuff.
yeah,
Um, but that's with and obviously we're only testing people who have symptoms. So right there immediately our reported case numbers is going to be much lower than the actual amounts of infections. Um,
right. Because I heard you could have it for at least a couple of days before even showing any symptoms. I heard
yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, some people don't even show symptoms. Sometimes I think it can incubate in you for a week or two.
Yeah,
And then this is all stuff that obviously the researchers will get down very exactly, that there are differing reports, different countries and stuff like that. But so right now in the U.S., there's already reports of hospitals being overrun. And yesterday, the total number of confirmed cases was 13,677,
is that
which
wow 13,000? I
13,000.
think we're at what 200 about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So, well, and the big reason that the U.S.'s numbers have been skyrocketing is because we weren't testing
Yeah,
forever,
yeah,
and so we've ramped up tests.
yeah,
The testing in just the last week has gone from 2% of those being testing positive to now 10% of people who get tested testing positive,
wow,
which suggests not only like obviously it's, oh well, more people are getting tested. However, it means that we're reserving a lot of the tests for people with severe symptoms. A
or
lot of people.
basketball players.
What's that?
Or basketball players, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. And so the thing is also, yeah, more rich people early on were getting
Yeah,
tested because they could afford it and they wanted to know. And so perhaps that's where part of that smaller percentage early on is.
Yeah.
But still, it's the percentage is going up, and I
Yeah.
think it's because we're still being our test rate is, even though we're exponentially growing our testing capacity, it's still being outgrown by the infections.
Yeah, no, I don't think we responded to it as quickly as other countries did, or as well as other countries did. I hear Taiwan's doing an amazing job keeping it under control because they put in measures immediately, had a lot of testing going on. People complying with quarantine orders over there, and so I think they managed to keep it under control. I think my problem was initially that a lot of these reports coming out of China, um, you weren't sure how much of that to believe because China is, basically a dictatorship or a communist country, and they obviously don't want to look bad. But I think as soon as I heard, China quarantining cities of millions of people and not allowing anybody in and out, at that point it's probably pretty bad when a country like China has to finally admit that they have to quarantine, 70, 100 million people in their cities. So I think the only news that I've been able to sort of trust at this point is the stuff coming out of Italy, which are pretty scary numbers out there. And just to reinforce the infectiousness of this disease, you hear a lot, like thousands of like medical workers in Italy are coming down with this thing. And these are people trained to not get sick from people. They're trained to keep, sterile environments. Even they can't help but get sick. And the number of them are dying. I think I heard like something like 18% of the medical professionals in Italy right now are affected by coronavirus because they've had to work with so many patients. Obviously, they're in contact with the patients, obviously. So that does skew the numbers a bit. But still, they're trained professionals. They have, the best equipment, but here they're running out of things as well over there. So
Yeah.
uh,
And
scary thing.
one sad thing about the medical workers who get infected is I saw something that said that uh, it's it's possible that the medical workers are dying despite being in good health because the seriousness of the infection, it can be increased by your initial contact. So
Yeah.
if you're around somebody who's very sick from it,
Yeah.
they're expelling a lot of the virus, and then you get a lot of it on your initial contact. It's
Yeah.
going to your body has uh, no immune response ready
Yeah.
to start tackling that. If you have a small
Yeah.
amount that you're exposed to, your immune response can possibly figure it out and fight back at it. But so unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of these medical
It's not
workers are,
casual. It's not casual contact. Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of these, I mean, and then when you have medical workers, getting sick and dying, it's only going to exacerbate the problem that we don't have a big enough capacity of medical workers in hospitals and ventilators.
Yeah.
Uh, and so this is uh this is where I guess this severity of the crisis,
Yeah.
uh, combined with the fact that you can get reinfected, um, and again, we're talking about our hospitals are being overrun right now with a reported number of infections of 13,000, right? 13,000, and let's say you know what? It's probably higher than that, right?
Yeah.
It's probably 10 times higher than that. So what is 130,000 of 375 million? It's it's point so it's 0.003% of the general population.
Yeah.
And we're saying that's if it's 10 times as many people infected as
Yeah.
currently reported.
Yeah.
0.003%. And health, like epidemiologists have said that they expect 40 to 70% of Americans to get it. That would suggest that it's going to take a very long time. And we're looking at a very long time. Like if we flatten the curve to
Yeah.
try to keep hospitals at capacity, it means social distancing policies for not months, it means it for years.
Yeah.
This is going to radically alter society. I'm
Yeah.
a bar owner, and I'm coming to the real, you know, uh, reality here, bars are not a thing anymore. Live events are not a thing anymore. Gatherings, we can't do that. This is not, I've made these statements in the same way that I was telling you earlier. I made, 2 weeks ago, I was telling you, hey, I think this is going to be bad. We should look to be out of work for 2 months.
Yeah.
And, everybody's like, oh, you're being really alarmist. But so now I'm like, I don't want to be alarmist. I was right before. And now I think the prognosis is much, much worse.
Yeah.
I think we're looking at a fundamental change to society.
Yeah.
And not only, first of all, it means capitalism is over. There's no way that we can remain in our rooms isolated from one another and continue producing, right? It means that
Yeah.
we have to, it means we have to, some of us have to go out, not interact with each other, secure means of production to feed everyone, to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
We can't rely on profiteering anymore because that'll collapse. That's the reason that they have to send checks to everyone. That's those checks to everyone. It's not for a 2-month quarantine. It's gonna have to be forever. And if
Yeah.
we are talking about the reason that we talk about using that money to do that is because that's the system that we have right now, is using currency in a capitalist society. But that capitalist society, like, and this is something where I want to interview an economist, right? Because
Yeah.
I saw that they put it out that the Fed is going to loan big banks $1 trillion a day. I had to look up how much paper currency is in circulation in the US. It's $1.5 trillion.
Yeah.
So every every fucking every 3 days, we're loaning double the amount of all the paper currency in circulation to big banks to maintain this farce that is capitalism continuing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what the long-reaching effects of all this is going to be. I mean, you look at what China went through, what some of the Asian countries of or experiences have gone through. So China seemed to have gone through a period of about 4 months where it got, really bad. Kind of reached a peak, and then if you believe the reports coming out of China, which I don't know if you can or not, they're saying it's done now. They're tearing down hospitals. They've got it under control. They've got better testing, all that kind of stuff. But to your point, I don't know how you ever have people go back to be around each other anymore, because if this is as infectious as it is, and the effects are as bad as they are, it just takes one person to be sick, right? To
Yeah.
infect, according to the science, there are 2 to 2.5 people for every person, every time they come in contact, right? And so you do the exponential multiplication at that point, and you're back to where you were, 4 months ago. So I don't know how that works. And when China reported 100,000 people sick and 2,000 deaths, given what China is to me, and given that it's a communist country, I'm thinking it was at least 20,000 deaths and 1 million people sick. I
Yeah.
just multiply by 10. Whatever China gives me, I multiply by 10 and say that's probably real. So I don't understand. I mean, and I haven't heard enough about what's going on in China, really, and you don't really know what's going on there. But I don't understand how, to your point, how you go back to living like the way you lived before, unless you get to the point where you're just going to accept. So maybe you flatten the curve enough so the hospitals aren't overwhelmed, and you just accept that this is a new disease that causes 3% of deaths every year if anybody gets affected, and that's just a
That
new.
Yeah, then that is something that I heard early on also. And if let's say it's just another virus that's out there now,
Yeah.
that kills when you get it. It kills, it kills people over 80, 10% of the time. It probably effectively shortens lifespans by 10 years
Yeah.
on the average. Um, and if we try to live our day to day, people get it, and sometimes people just die from it.
Yeah.
But the thing is I think unfortunately, I don't know that there, because you can get reinfected, right?
Yeah.
There's currently no evidence of immunity. I and if it continue, like, I imagine getting infected with it a second time is, because a lot of people now have like 20 to 30% less lung capacity when they get infected, after they get infected, or after
Even
they
young people?
recover.
Oh, is that all ages or mostly older people?
It's probably mostly older people, but regardless, I'm sure that unless you have some sort of immune
Yeah.
response to it, uh, you and this is what I was looking at, was other coronaviruses that cause these common colds. Typically, you have a short period of immunity, but eventually your body gives up on that immune response, and so then you can
Yeah.
get reinfected later and with the
Yeah.
same severity. So it would seem that if this is something that you can get time and time again, right? It's not one infection curve that we're trying to
Yeah.
flatten. It's We're riding a camel's back forever.
Yeah. I think the only wild card in all of that is if they can develop an effective vaccine to it, like they
Yeah,
have some of the flu strains, right? So if you can develop an effective vaccine when you get the infectious rate down to what a normal flu would do, right? And you get better testing, you get better quarantining procedures, and people really understand how serious it is. Um, that could let us perhaps go back to somewhat of a normal life, but I think you still get the new norm where you just kind of shrug and say, well, if you're old and you get this thing, you're looking at, like you said, 10%, whatever it is for anybody over 80 years old or whatever.
yeah,
And that's just sort of the life that we are going to understand the life that my kids are going to understand going forward. We same thing. We don't understand what's polio was. Like the older generation would understood polio and how that was such a data. We don't understand that. Just say my kids won't understand the world of coronavirus. I think probably because
yeah.
once you let the genie out of the bottle, it's not like smallpox. We can kind of eradicate it. I don't think you're going to find a vaccine for this thing that's going to say be 100% effective. But if we can get it up there to be even 50, 60% effective, what's a flu vaccine effectiveness rate? I don't even know.
I'm not sure either. I know that the thing is, and this is and this is also a scary thing, is that the flu vaccine has to be reformulated every year for different
Yeah.
strains, because
Right.
all these viruses, they mutate the more that they produce. So right now we could have multiple strains of coronavirus. It could be that
Yeah.
we have to constantly develop multiple different.
Hang on a sec, Sorry, what's up? Okay, I'm gonna go to the office. Welcome back. Talking to Steve about stuff. Yeah. All right, Chloe, I need the office, baby. Get out of here. Go on. Get out of here. I need the office. Go. Get out of here. Sorry.
It's fine. Yeah. Obviously, a vaccine or any sort of effective treatment would be great.
Yeah.
That's something that, it's I love it when Google is cannot cannot search for the thing that you want because there's, so I'm like, has there ever been a vaccine developed for a coronavirus, any coronavirus? And all of the results are regarding COVID-19. So it's, I can't, it's very difficult. It's all about developing
Yeah.
a vaccine for this virus.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only hopefulness I have, is that we have so many people and so many governments now working on this thing. I gotta assume that out of the 7.5 billion people on this planet, some guy out there is gonna find something. I don't know when, but I looked at the flu vaccine effectiveness rate. It's around 67%. So I think if we can get that, I think we have a chance of getting back to somewhat normal, with the understanding that this is something that's going to be a far more deadly form of flu. And
Yeah.
if we get testing down, if we can get people to understand that if they get tested for this and test positive for this, that there is mandatory quarantine procedures for that person. And people just got to take it more seriously. I think I still see a lot of people going out and doing things and traveling and all this kind of stuff. And it's just kind of unnecessary risk at this point. So,
Yeah. Well, and they're starting to lock down cities and stuff. And I know that there's the mayor of Houston who previously came out and was like, we're not shutting down bars and restaurants, and then within 24 hours had flip-flopped on that. He came out today to be like, no, it's a rumor going out there that we're going to lock down the city. They've locked down the entire state of California.
yeah,
Like every when you have a shelter in place and whatnot
yeah,
issued. I went out yesterday. I went to 3 different retail stores, and that are all going to be closed in
yeah,
a week probably if we're going to tackle this correctly. Um,
yeah,
because I think we talk about flattening the curve, but really it also is we have to figure out where we actually are, and that means everybody needs to stop interacting so that the infection rate stops growing, and then we test everybody to figure out the infection rate. The only other thing that and I wonder, I can't imagine it's possible to eradicate it, but if you isolated literally everyone for a couple of months,
yeah,
um, it seems like maybe you'd have a shot at containing it. The only issue is that they were essentially able to do that in China because it's an authoritarian country.
yeah,
But I think there are too many people in the U.S. who, and especially because it's not severe for most people who have it.
yeah.
They have it, they go out, and then it continues to spread. And I think
Yeah,
if
I mean,
you
you see
have a
the pictures of
lockdown,
people in Florida on the beaches going out still and packing the beaches still, and they won't shut down the beaches. It's pretty insane. I think that the biggest thing I take from all this is look at Trump and what he's done basically to understand how serious this all really is. Because going to this election cycle, the economy was basically his one card he had to play. He really hasn't done much else, but his supporters think he's some kind of economic genius, and the stock market's doing really well. The fact that he had to finally admit that this is a national emergency and declare these, really unheard of measures in terms of putting money into the economy and lending banks money, and now looking at perhaps a monthly check for people for a couple months, seeing the stock market crash like that. I mean, that gives you the idea how serious it is for him to be able to finally admit this is a
yeah.
huge problem for the U.S. Because otherwise he would just keep going the way he was going, and saying, it's just a minor thing, don't worry about it, and hope the stock market stays where it was until November 20th. And
So
then
that brings up a couple of concerns. First of all, I'll say that there's a part of the reason that I started taking this very seriously is a couple of days ago. There was a New York Times article where they released a State Department document that
yeah,
said that internally there was a memo to the president that said expect this to last a minimum of 18 months.
wow,
And that was during the time that Trump was calling it a Democratic hoax.
yeah,
Um, and I imagine that was expected to last a minimum of 18 months if we take this action, like
sure,
this action that he delayed and then completely bungled, which
yeah,
makes me think a couple of things, because what we're what we're on the edge of right now is a forced shutdown and quarantine everywhere. And the only way you do that is by declaring martial law, right? Getting the National Guard involved somehow. Um, Additionally, if if we don't contain or isolate or come up with some sort of treatment, then I mean we can't have an election in November.
yeah,
We can't have people go to the polls. It's morally wrong.
yeah,
And so Trump is going to continue being president. We're going to have to put off this election. It's
yeah,
so then you say, how long do you have this president who bungled it but was informed on how not to bungle it. But
Yeah.
he also like, and that's also maybe he has an internal cabal who said, "Hey, you bungle it, you get that martial law and that power." That's obviously that's conspiratorial and whatever else, but that's also the reality that we're facing here is that we can't have elections.
Yeah.
We're not going to fix it by then.
No, not unless there's a big breakthrough in the vaccines. It's research right now. So I've
On
heard they're actually doing human trials right now in some countries with some vaccines. People are volunteering to get that trial. They're skipping the animal testing phase, obviously, right now for a lot of those things. So we'll see where we're at. It's March now. I think I'm in day five of lockdown for us, right? Day six, something like that.
yeah, yeah, it's early on.
So
It's early on, and
yeah.
that's where
So we'll see
wasn't
how that
wasn't the
comes out.
rodeo still on 2 weeks ago?
So I went to the rodeo, and I think the day after I went to the rodeo, they said they were shutting the rodeo down.
Oh God,
So, I mean, we all have those. I mean, you're right. You're ahead of the curve on all this because we all had those tweets and memes and stuff that we're doing that was kind of funny. At first, we thought, this reminds me of Hurricane Harvey, though. We did the same thing, Hurricane Harvey. We just thought, oh, it's going to rain a little bit, big
yeah.
deal. And then 5 days of rain later, the most rain ever to fall in one area of the world, I think, in 5 days is what we got, right?
Yeah, like, I
So,
remember during that time the California was dealing with this terrible water crisis and drought, and they were like, when they did the math, they were like, the amount of water that went on Houston would have solved California's water crisis like 3 times over. Would have
it
filled all
would,
the
yeah,
bars.
it would if we knew how to manage any of our resources. That's
Yeah,
for sure. You know what I mean? Like California had gotten that water, people just been watering their lawns every day, whether near or not. We don't know how to use our resources. Nobody does.
yeah.
Like for my own house, I haven't put fertilizer or any kind of weed, stuff on my lawn for probably the last 8 years. Because I'm just like it just flows into the water and just
Yeah.
destroys things. And I'm like, does it really matter if I have a couple of weeds in my yard? I just cut my grass anyway. It just cuts down short.
Lawns,
Grass.
yeah. Hey, don't get me started with the lawns. I hate them. I'm glad I have
You
a
know what I mean?
townhome with no grass.
But we sell billions of pounds of this stuff every year that people just like throw onto their lawns like it's going out of business or something,
Yeah.
and then it washes down somewhere. We just don't know how to use our resources, man. We don't, like people. I see people out there washing their car. I got my friend right now. She got this, car washing package with like all you can wash for like a certain amount of money every month, and
Yeah.
she's washed her car like 5 times this month already. Like, why do you need to wash your car 5 times in like a week? I don't understand, right?
So your car's
Um,
gotta be pretty, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's a thing too, and I feel bad for people, out of work and all these billionaire CEOs who have, it hasn't seemed to even cross their mind to put even $1 billion of their 100 billion, like Bezos, to help out their employees during this time, right?
Yeah.
It hasn't even crossed his mind to do that.
The thing is, I really do, I worry that I mean, this crisis is exposing, the capitalist economy and system as a sort of ruse that it is. And I mean,
Yeah,
I will say that one thing about Jeff Bezos, like, his salary is only $80,000 a year. Whenever people talk about his wealth, they mean his his holdings of his own company and the valuation of his company. So yeah, he could sell his Amazon stock and then have that money. That also requires people to buy all that stock at that valuation. It's
well, nah, let's be honest. So he's got a few billion in the bank right now.
oh yeah, oh I'm sure he
I
does.
agree.
I'm sure he
At
does.
the $100 billion he has, I agree that probably 70% of that is stock valuation. But
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the guy's banked a few $1 billion and could afford to give his employees a bit of a break. At the end of the day, I mean, why not run Amazon as a break-even company for a few months while you're giving your employees a break and benefits and all that kind of stuff? Because at the end of the day, it's just going to rebound. I mean, you're a big enough giant now that, I mean, nobody's really going to take you down. Everybody's suffering
well,
after.
Amazon's going to do great because we're about to have it be illegal to walk into a store and buy
Yeah,
things.
but now we got tens of thousands of Amazon workers, probably a lot of them who are infected, handling the goods that's into our house now. So it doesn't help. You're
Yeah.
you're quarantining yourself, but you're just bringing the infection to your house because I hear that this virus can last on some surfaces for days. Amazon delivers in up to 24 hours sometimes. So The speed at which they deliver is actually working against us now. I don't know. What do you do? You say Amazon deliveries can't be delivered in less than a week? What do you say? Like you quarantine the delivery? Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
Right? But I
you,
mean,
you
if
get
the delivery guy has the virus and he's just gonna grab the package that's been quarantined, and I don't think you win by that either. Especially if you're forcing people to work in a warehouse where there's 20,000 workers coming in every day,
yeah.
all in close quarters with each other. I don't know, man. I think, yeah, the vaccine is our best hope to go back to normal, but the new normal is not going to be what we are used to now.
Yeah, I mean I think that's unfortunately I think that's where well you have to hope for the best but plan for the worst. And
Yep.
I think if there is no vaccine, I think there's a new normal, which is that it's something unlike humanity has ever experienced in all of its existence. And obviously, it's because we have this huge global economy and interconnectedness and whatever else. And luckily, we have technology to allow us to understand it quickly enough. Because can you imagine this virus existing 20, 30, 50 years ago?
Well, that was shocking to me. I mean, I was looking at something else a while ago, and I didn't realize this, but if you were to guess, when would you guess? At what date would you guess that we understood germ theory finally? Like that these were actually caused by germs. What
Oh,
date would you guess that happened?
uh, gosh, I feel like it's late 1800s or something.
1920, apparently. Apparently, it took us about 1920s. There's a doctor who was trying to investigate why mothers in maternity wards were dying of sepsis for such a high rate after giving birth. And he found out that midwives who gave birth, the mothers in those situations were dying at a much lower rate. Doctors who were handling births, much higher rate. He was finding out that these doctors were actually handling cadavers and then just going to give birth
Yeah.
to these moms without even washing their hands or anything, right? And so he then had that theory that there was something in the cadavers on the hands and the blood. Like, I don't know why it took so long, right? That was possibly causing these deaths. So they had doctors starting to wash their hands after working on other people's cadavers. The death rate plummeted dramatically, and then germ theory was kind of at that point. I
Yeah.
think it was 1920s, if I read the article correctly. I thought that would have been early 1800s myself.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know what I
That's
mean? Like as soon
crazy.
as microscopes were invented, you're like, oh, hey, there's something here. No, 1920s, like 1918, 1920, around there. Yeah, it's crazy. So no, I agree with you. We're in a better time. This could probably, if back in the Spanish flu days, it's probably been like a Spanish flu. Just everybody getting sick and dying, and you cart away the bodies and hope for the best at that point, right?
Yeah.
But no, I think it's a new. You can't. I don't think it's out. You can't stop it. It just takes one person. Even in a country like Madagascar, which is an island country, a small island country's got its first 3 cases of coronavirus. You know.
I don't know, have you ever played Pandemic or Plague or whatever? They have these games.
Yeah, I played that game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Once you get Madagascar, hey, it's all over. You're gonna get it all over the world.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, it's just airplanes and boats and everybody traveling all the time and people wanting to go on vacation to Vegas. I heard about a lady going on vacation to Vegas recently. On my Facebook page, one of their mom's coworkers went to Vegas for vacation, came back, had corona. Now her mom's locked down for 2 weeks. The whole company's kind of locked down for 2 weeks, so it's insane, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel for you, man. I feel for you as a small business owner. I feel for your employees. I get to work from home. My work isn't affected. My paycheck isn't affected. But
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are. And to your point, how does the economy kind of come back from this? Do we just say we have to just go back and just kind of deal with it? I don't know. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It's
It's
gonna be rough.
callous. It sounds callous, but
Yeah.
that's the choice we eventually end up making as a world population, just saying we got to go back to work. There's no other way we can make any of this work. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you're right. People have to go produce things. People go deliver things. People need entertainment. People have to have the ability to socialize outside of their home. Um, I don't know. It's a terrible choice to make, I think, right? But eventually we're going to be forced to make that choice because this is not sustainable what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Yeah, good talk, man. Appreciate your
Yeah,
call.
I'm glad I got to hash out some thoughts, came up with some extra ones.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna try to talk to a bunch of different people, video chat, and then probably put them up on YouTube and just airing it out because there's not a lot else for me to do, you know. So, and it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
hard.
sure.
I find myself not writing the funny things as much.
No, no. But I think an important thing, and I talked about with my boss, is to try to maintain some kind of schedule for yourself. I think that really helps to keep things in perspective, keep things more sane, and just keep yourself not from getting too pessimistic about things, right? So for my work day, it's easier for me because I still have to work from home, but I still get up at the same time every day as I usually got up, even though I don't have to drive to work anymore. Doing the same hours, try to eat the same kind of things for lunch, and just maintain that for myself. Because I think if you stop doing that, you sort of kind of give in mentally to the whole thing as well as physically, right? So we're already giving it physically to the thing by staying
Yeah,
home. So do whatever you usually do, man. I know that you can't go to the bar and do stuff there as much with other people, but if you got things to do for work for the bar, just kind of spend some hours doing that. There's always efficiencies you can try to find, operating your business, that kind of thing too. So
yeah. Well, I'm also kind of, I gotta hedge my bets because, like I said, I don't know if bars are gonna be a thing anymore. So I'm gonna try to figure out what else I can do with my life.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think a vaccine should be coming. I think
Oh,
there's people
uh,
working on it. I'm hopeful for that. So
certainly hope so. Well,
yeah.
I gotta pee like a racehorse.
All right.
So thank you for talking with me.
Yeah. Take care.
You too.
All right. Bye.